forced migration is a human phenomenon. Behind the numbers, the laws, and the institutions, there are people. This video introduces the key actors who, individually and collectively, make decisions about when and how to move and how to respond to forced migration. In this video, we will spotlight some of the people and organizations in 4 main categories. A, those with lived experience of forced migration. B, multilateral actors. C, government actors. And D, non-governmental organizations. First, let's think about people with forced displacement experiences. We need to recognize their agency, that is, the capacity to make decisions, even in the context of structural constraints of forced migration. People have different perceptions of risk and occupy different positionalities within intersecting power relations. So, when, where, and how people decide to flee varies, even when faced with the same cause of forced migration. People in contexts of forced migration also advocate for their rights and provide services. For example, the Asia-Pacific Network of Refugees has worked tirelessly in relation to displacement in and from Afghanistan. In Canada, sponsored refugees tend to also engage in sponsorship themselves. Despite these important roles, people with lived experience have been marginalized from policy and decision-making. In most countries, non-citizens are illegally disenfranchised. Refugee rights organizations and institutions are dominated by people who do not have lived experience of forced migration. A deficit approach in much policy and programming overlooks displaced people's agency, knowledge, and expertise. This is beginning to change due to advocacy by the Global Refugee-led Network, Share the Platform, and other initiatives. But, despite the attempt to implement the ideal of, quote, nothing about us without us, unquote, there is still limited representation and participation. The second kind of actor we will discuss in this video are multilateral organizations. Multilateral actors coordinate states' approaches to forced migration. This is important given the cross-border nature of displacement, as well as international and regional law and norms. Within the United Nations, there is a division of responsibility between UNHCR, UNRWA, and IOM. The statute of UNHCR, the UN Refugee Agency, includes 2 main roles for UNHCR: international protection for refugees and durable solutions for refugees. Under international protection, UNHCR is primarily concerned with the adoption and implementation of international law and norms to protect refugees. In some cases, it also engages in refugee status determination. UNHCR promotes 3 durable solutions: repatriation to the country of origin when conditions are safe to do so, integration in the country of asylum, and resettlement to a third country. The UN Relief and Works Agency, or UNRWA, was established by a UN General Assembly resolution related to the Arab-Israeli conflict in 1949 and has been operational since 1950. Its mandate is exclusively related to Palestinian refugees, providing education, healthcare, and other social relief and social services. It is funded by UN member states but has a chronic deficit. The International Organization for Migration, or IOM, was established in 1951 to help resettle people displaced by World War II. It continues to play key logistical roles in the global resettlement of refugees. In 2016, IOM became a UN agency. Historically, it had primarily administrative and logistic roles, but it is increasingly involved in policy making, such as the Global Compact on Migration. Regional institutions are also important multilateral actors in forced migration. For example, the African Union oversees the African Convention on Refugees and the Kampala Convention on Internally Displaced People. At a sub-regional level, ECOWAS has had a free movement protocol since 1979. Third, in context of sovereign states and borders, governments are key actors in forced migration, sometimes as a cause of forced migration, and always in terms of domestic laws and policies related to migration and citizenship. This video will focus primarily on Canada because each context and government is different. In federal states, the central government has primary jurisdiction over borders and immigration. In Canada, federal, provincial, or territorial agreements vary. However, in general, the federal government is responsible for overarching law, the Immigration and Refugee Protection Act, citizenship, international border, and immigration levels. At the federal level in Canada, there are 4 key actors. Immigration, Refugees, and Citizenship Canada, or IRCC, has overall responsibility for immigration, refugee, and citizenship law and policy in Canada. It also funds newcomer integration services like language training and employment services. The Immigration and Refugee Board, IRB, is an independent administrative tribunal that hears and decides refugee claims and conducts admissibility hearings to decide if people are inadmissible to or removable from Canada. The IRB reports to the Minister of Citizenship and Immigration, but remains independent from the Minister and IRCC. Canada Border Services Agency, CBSA, has primary responsibility for border control and admissibility decisions at points of entry. It also has enforcement functions related to immigration and refugee issues, including detention, removals, and investigations. CBSA plays intelligence and immigration control functions overseas. Global Affairs Canada takes the lead on international refugee policy and negotiations. It provides funding to UNHCR, UNRWA, and international organizations and humanitarian assistance in large-scale refugee movements. Fourth, non-governmental organizations, NGOs, from large international organizations to small local community associations, undertake research, advocate, and provide services. They are an important counterweight to governments and multilateral organizations. In conclusion, it's important to remember that behind the numbers and the institutions, there are people. While large multilateral and non-governmental organizations and powerful governments may dominate policymaking, we should not forget that people first make the decision to leave or to stay, and that their lived experiences provide important insights into forced migration knowledge.